3 weeks after I paid for my daughter's wedding, she told me I was no longer welcome in her home. The reason? I had embarrassed her in front of her new in-laws by wearing the wrong dress to the rehearsal dinner. That same evening, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I canceled every credit card I'd co-signed for her, removed her from my will, and disappeared from her world completely. What I left behind was a letter that shattered her perfect illusion, but finally gave me back the dignity I'd lost somewhere along the way. My name is Zoe. I'm 64 years old. I was a registered nurse for 38 years, working the night shift at Cook County Hospital here in Chicago. I came from a small farming town in Iowa, the youngest of 5 children, carrying nothing but a worn suitcase and a determination to make something of myself. And I did. I graduated from nursing school at the top of my class. I worked in some of the toughest emergency rooms in the city. I saved lives. I held hands with dying patients. I comforted families in their darkest hours. But somehow, I forgot to save myself from the one person who would hurt me the most. I was born in 1961 in a tiny town called Waverly, Iowa. My father, Robert Caldwell, worked at the grain mill, hauling 50-pound sacks from sunrise to sunset. My mother, Dorothy, took in ironing and mending for the wealthier families in town. We weren't poor exactly, but we knew what it meant to stretch a dollar until it screamed. I grew up watching my mother's hands, always moving, always working. Red and chapped from washing other people's clothes, careful and precise when she sewed. She never complained. Not once. And she had this way of making us feel rich even when we were eating beans and cornbread for the 3rd night in a row. When I was 14, my oldest brother Tommy got into a farming accident. He lost 2 fingers on his right hand. I'll never forget sitting in that hospital waiting room, watching the nurses move through the halls with such purpose, such competence. They weren't just doing a job. They were warriors in white uniforms. That day, I knew exactly what I wanted to be. I told my mother that night, "Mama, I'm going to be a nurse." She looked up from her ironing board, smiled that tired smile of hers, and said, "Then you study hard, Maggie. Education is the one thing nobody can ever take from you." And I did study. I studied like my life depended on it because it did. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to help with chores. Then I'd squeeze in an hour of studying before school. After school, I worked at the local diner, serving coffee and pie to farmers and truckers. Then I'd come home, help make dinner, and study until midnight by the light of my desk lamp. My siblings thought I was crazy. My friends thought I was boring. But I had a vision of a different life, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. I got accepted to nursing school in Chicago in 1979 when I was 18. My parents couldn't afford to help much, but my mother sold her grandmother's silver tea set, the only valuable thing she owned, to give me money for books and supplies. I cried when she handed me that envelope with $300 in it. She just hugged me and said, "Go make us proud, baby girl." I arrived in Chicago that September with my cardboard suitcase, $200 left in my pocket, and a heart full of dreams and terror. The city was massive, loud, dirty, and absolutely thrilling. I'd never seen so many people in one place. I'd never heard so many different languages. I'd never felt so small and so alive at the same time. I lived in a boarding house on the south side with 6 other girls. We shared 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The radiator clanked all night in winter. The windows didn't quite close, so we'd stuff towels in the cracks. But we were all in it together, all of us farm girls and small-town girls trying to make it in the big city. I worked as a nursing assistant during the day to pay my bills, and I went to classes at night. Those 3 years were brutal. I can't count how many times I fell asleep over my anatomy textbook, or how many meals were just crackers and peanut butter, because that's all I could afford. But I never thought about quitting. Not once. I graduated in 1982 with honors. I'll never forget the feeling of walking across that stage in my white uniform and cap, knowing that my parents were in the audience, knowing that I'd actually done it. My mother cried. My father, who never showed emotion, had tears in his eyes too. I started working at Cook County Hospital right after graduation. The emergency room was chaos, absolute controlled chaos. Gunshot wounds, heart attacks, car accidents, overdoses. We saw humanity at its worst and its best, sometimes in the same shift. It was exhausting and exhilarating, and everything I'd dreamed of. It was there, in that madhouse of an ER, that I met Daniel Foster in 1984. He was a paramedic, tall and solid with kind eyes and steady hands. He brought in a patient one night, a kid who'd been hit by a car, and I watched him stay calm and focused the entire time, talking to the boy, keeping him conscious, doing everything right. After we stabilized the patient, Daniel caught me in the hallway. "You're really good at what you do," he said. I blushed like a teenager. "So are you," I managed to say back. 3 weeks later, he asked me out for coffee after our shifts. 6 months after that, we were engaged. We got married in 1985 in a small ceremony at my parents' church back in Iowa. Daniel's family was there too, good working people from Ohio. We didn't have much, but we had each other and we had hope. We moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, and we were happy. Really, genuinely happy. Our daughter, Jessica Marie Foster, was born in 1988. The labor was long and difficult, 22 hours that left me exhausted and overwhelmed. But when they placed her in my arms, when I looked into those blue eyes, I felt something shift inside me. A love so fierce it was almost frightening. I would have died for this child. I would have done anything for her. Daniel was a wonderful father in those early years. He'd come home from his shifts and take Jessica from my arms so I could sleep. He'd walk the floors with her when she had colic, singing off-key lullabies. We were a team. We were a family. But somewhere around Jessica's 5th birthday, things started to change. Daniel began picking up extra shifts, saying we needed the money. He wasn't wrong. Raising a child in Chicago wasn't cheap. But he was gone more and more. And when he was home, he was distant, distracted. I tried to talk to him about it, but he'd just say he was tired, that I was being too sensitive. So I threw myself into being both mother and father to Jessica. I worked the night shift so I could be home during the day with her. I slept in short bursts, running on coffee and determination. I made sure Jessica had everything. Dance classes, piano lessons, nice clothes, birthday parties with all her friends. I volunteered at her school. I was room mother, PTA member, the parent who brought the best snacks to class parties. I was determined to give her the childhood I never had. When Jessica was 12, I found out why Daniel had been so distant. There was someone else, a younger nurse at his station. He confessed on a Tuesday evening, standing in our kitchen with his hands in his pockets like a guilty schoolboy. "I'm sorry, Maggie. I didn't mean for it to happen. But I need to be honest with you. I want a divorce." I felt my whole world tilt. But I didn't cry. Not in front of him. I just nodded and said, "Fine. But Jessica stays with me." He agreed so quickly it almost hurt more than the betrayal. He didn't even fight for her. The divorce was finalized in 2001. Daniel moved out to the suburbs with his new girlfriend. I got the apartment, full custody of Jessica, and child support that barely covered groceries. But I didn't complain. I just worked harder. I picked up overtime shifts whenever I could. Double shifts, triple shifts. I'd work 16 hours straight, come home to make Jessica breakfast, sleep for 4 hours, and do it all over again. My supervisor kept telling me I'd burn out, but I couldn't afford to burn out. I had a daughter to raise. Jessica took the divorce hard. She became moody and withdrawn. She'd lock herself in her room for hours. Her grades, which had always been good, started to slip. I tried everything. Therapy, which I could barely afford. Long talks, which she refused to have. I blamed myself. I blamed Daniel. I blamed the universe. But then something shifted when she turned 15. She became social again, but in a way that worried me. She wanted designer clothes, expensive makeup, the latest phone. She'd throw fits when I said we couldn't afford something. She'd compare our apartment to her friends' houses and find us lacking. "Mom, why can't we live somewhere nicer?" she'd ask. "Why do you have to work such a gross job?" That last one cut deep. My gross job was paying for everything she had. But I swallowed my hurt and tried to explain. "Jessica, nursing is honest work. It's important work. And we have what we need." She'd just roll her eyes and stomp off to her room. I made excuses for her behavior. She was a teenager. She was still processing the divorce. She'd grow out of it. And to be fair, there were still good moments. Times when she'd hug me and say, "Thanks, Mom." Times when she'd tell me about her day, and I'd feel like we were still connected. Jessica graduated high school in 2006 with decent grades. Not great, but good enough to get into a state university. I was so proud. I threw her a graduation party, spent money I didn't have on decorations and food. All her friends came. Daniel showed up for an hour with his new wife, looking uncomfortable the whole time. When it came time for college, Jessica wanted to go to Northwestern. Private, expensive, prestigious. I looked at the tuition and my heart sank. There was no way. I'd have to take out massive loans. I'd be in debt until I was 80. But she begged. She cried. She said all her friends were going to good schools, that she'd be embarrassed to go to a state school. And like a fool, I gave in. I co-signed loans I had no business signing. I took out a second mortgage on our apartment that I'd finally managed to buy. I worked even more overtime to cover living expenses. Jessica moved into a dorm. I helped her decorate it, bought her everything she needed. Bedding, a mini fridge, a laptop. I hugged her goodbye and cried all the way home, missing her already. But something happened at college. The calls became less frequent. When she did call, it was usually to ask for money. Textbooks were expensive. She needed money for school supplies. Her meal plan wasn't enough. Her sorority had dues. There was always something. I gave it to her every single time. I'd skip meals to make sure her account had enough. I'd work extra shifts until my feet were so swollen I could barely stand. I told myself this was what mothers did. This was love. Jessica graduated in 2010 with a business degree and no clear career plans. She moved back home, which I was thrilled about. I thought we'd reconnect. I thought we'd be close again. Instead, she treated our apartment like a hotel. She'd sleep until noon, leave dirty dishes everywhere, and go out with friends at night. When I gently suggested she look for a job, she'd snap that the economy was bad, that I didn't understand how hard it was for her generation. I let it slide. I kept working. I kept covering expenses. After all, she was my daughter. She needed time to figure things out. 6 months turned into a year. A year turned into 2. Jessica had a few part-time jobs here and there, but nothing stuck. She'd quit because the boss was mean, or the work was boring, or it wasn't what she wanted to do long-term. Meanwhile, I was getting older. My back hurt constantly from years of lifting patients. My knees were shot. I was 50 years old and exhausted down to my bones. But I couldn't stop. Jessica depended on me. Then in 2012, she announced she was moving out. She'd met someone, a guy named Brad from a wealthy family in Evanston. He worked in finance. He had money. He was going to support her while she figured out her passion. I should have been happy for her. Instead, I felt abandoned. But I smiled and helped her pack, helped her move into the beautiful apartment Brad had rented for them. I even gave her money for furniture because Brad's family had expensive taste and she wanted to fit in. Jessica and Brad got engaged in 2014. She called me squealing with excitement. I was genuinely happy for her. I thought maybe marriage would settle her down, give her purpose and direction. But then came the wedding planning. And that's when I realized just how far apart we'd grown. Jessica wanted a wedding at the Four Seasons. She wanted 200 guests. She wanted a designer dress, a live band, an open bar with top-shelf liquor. She rattled off numbers that made my head spin. The whole thing would cost over $60,000. Jessica, honey, that's a lot of money, I said carefully. Maybe we could do something smaller? Something more intimate. She looked at me like I'd suggested she get married in a dumpster. Mom, this is my wedding. The most important day of my life. Brad's parents are paying for half. I just need you to cover the other half. $30,000. I didn't have $30,000. I had maybe $5,000 in savings, money I'd been setting aside for retirement. I can't afford that much, Jessica. I'm sorry, but I just can't. Her face went cold. You mean you won't? You've never supported my dreams. You've never wanted me to be happy. I tried to explain. I showed her my bank statements, my bills, my mortgage payments. I explained that I was 3 years from retirement, that I needed to start saving. She didn't care. She cried. She said I was ruining her life. She said Brad's family would think she came from trash if we couldn't pay our share. She said she'd never forgive me. And like every other time, I broke. I took out a loan. I drained my retirement account and paid the early withdrawal penalties. I scraped together $30,000 and handed it to my daughter for one day, one single day that would be over in 12 hours. The wedding was in June 2015. It was beautiful, I'll give her that. The flowers were perfect. The food was exquisite. Jessica looked stunning in her $5,000 dress. But I felt out of place the whole time. Brad's family and friends were all wealthy, polished people in designer clothes. I wore the nicest dress I owned, a simple navy blue number I'd bought on sale at Macy's. I thought it was appropriate. I thought I looked fine. The rehearsal dinner was the night before at an upscale steakhouse. I arrived on time, excited to meet more of Brad's family. But the moment I walked in, I felt the stares. Brad's mother, Patricia, looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Oh," she said loudly. "I didn't realize we were dressing casually tonight." She was wearing what looked like a cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. I felt my face flush. Jessica, standing nearby, looked mortified. But she didn't defend me. She just looked away. I sat through that dinner feeling smaller and smaller. I barely ate. I barely spoke. I just wanted it to be over. After dinner, I went to the restroom. When I came out, I heard voices in the hallway. Jessica and Patricia. "I'm sorry about my mother," Jessica was saying. "She doesn't really understand how to dress for these kinds of events. She's just a nurse. She doesn't come from the same background as us." My heart stopped. My own daughter. Apologizing for me. Reducing me to just a nurse, as if that was something to be ashamed of. I stood there frozen, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I thought about walking back in there. I thought about saying something. But what would I say? What could I say that wouldn't make a scene, wouldn't embarrass her further? So I left quietly. I went back to the table, finished the evening with a smile plastered on my face, and drove home alone to my empty apartment. The next day was the wedding. I showed up. I smiled for photos. I gave a toast that Jessica had written for me, praising her and Brad and their bright future together. I danced with her once, a stiff, awkward dance where we both pretended everything was fine. At the end of the night, when she hugged me goodbye before leaving for her honeymoon, she whispered, "Thanks, Mom. I know you did your best." Did my best. As if paying for half her wedding was barely adequate. As if 38 years of sacrifice was just my best. I drove home that night in a daze. I walked into my apartment, sat on my couch, and finally let myself cry. Not tears of joy. Tears of grief. Because I realized I had lost my daughter somewhere along the way. Or maybe I'd never really had her at all. Jessica and Brad went to Bora Bora for 3 weeks. I didn't hear from her at all during that time. Not a call, not a text. When she finally contacted me, it was to ask if I could watch their cat while they went to Brad's parents' vacation house in Aspen for a long weekend. I said yes, of course. I always said yes. I went to their townhouse in Lincoln Park, a gorgeous 3-story place that Brad's parents had bought for them as a wedding gift. Walking through those rooms, looking at the expensive furniture and art, I felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. My daughter lived in luxury. She'd married well. She'd never have to work night shifts or worry about making rent. Wasn't that what I'd always wanted for her? But there was something hollow about it all. The house felt cold despite its beauty. There were no personal touches, no photos of us, no reminders of where Jessica had come from. I fed the cat and left, feeling more like hired help than family. In August, 3 months after the wedding, I got a call from my supervisor at the hospital. She wanted to talk about my retirement plans. I was 62. I could retire early with reduced benefits or work 3 more years for full pension. I did the math that night. My retirement account, which should have had over $40,000, had less than $8,000 after I'd withdrawn money for the wedding. My knees were so bad I could barely make it through a shift. My back was killing me. But if I retired now, I'd barely have enough to survive. I decided to keep working. 3 more years. I could make it 3 more years. But my body had other plans. In September, I was helping move a patient and something in my back just gave out. The pain was blinding. I ended up in the same emergency room where I'd worked for decades, this time as a patient. The diagnosis was 2 herniated discs. I needed surgery. I'd be out of work for at least 3 months, maybe longer. The workers' compensation would cover some of it, but not all. And I'd be on reduced pay during recovery. I called Jessica from my hospital bed. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. "Mom, what's up? I'm kind of busy right now. I had an accident at work, honey. I hurt my back. I'm in the hospital." There was a pause. "Oh, that's too bad. Are you okay?" "Too bad." Like I'd told her I'd missed my bus. "I need surgery, Jessica. I'm going to be out of work for a while. I wanted you to know." "Okay. Well, keep me updated. I have to go. We're meeting Brad's parents for lunch." She hung up. She didn't offer to come see me. She didn't ask which hospital. She didn't ask if I needed anything. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, and something inside me finally cracked. I had the surgery a week later. I went home to an empty apartment. I hired a home health aide for the first 2 weeks because I couldn't do basic things like shower or cook for myself. It ate through what little savings I had left. Jessica didn't visit. Not once during those 2 weeks. She sent a text asking how I was. I replied that I was managing. She sent back a thumbs up emoji. A thumbs up emoji. One of my nursing friends, Rita, came to check on me. She brought groceries and helped me clean my apartment. She sat with me and held my hand while I cried, really cried, for the first time since the wedding. Zoe, honey, I have to ask. Why do you let that girl treat you like this? Rita said gently. She's my daughter. She's all I have. No, baby. You have yourself. And you're letting her destroy you. Rita's words stayed with me. I started thinking about everything. All the years, all the sacrifices, all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. All the times I'd given until I had nothing left. I thought about the wedding. About Jessica apologizing for me. About her calling me just a nurse. As if the career I'd built, the lives I'd saved, the difference I'd made meant nothing. I realized something painful and true. My daughter didn't love me. She loved what I could do for her. She loved my open wallet. But me, the person, the mother who'd raised her? I was just an embarrassment, someone to hide from her wealthy in-laws. In October, I got a call from a collections agency. They were looking for Jessica Foster, now Jessica Whitmore. She'd opened a credit card in her maiden name 6 months before the wedding and never paid the bill. The account was over $10,000 in debt. I'm sorry, but I'm not responsible for her debts, I said. Ma'am, you co-signed on this account. My blood ran cold. No, I didn't. I never signed anything. We have a signature here with your name on it, from May 2014. May 2014. Right around when wedding planning started. I asked them to send me copies of the documents. When they arrived, I saw my name signed in handwriting that looked like mine but wasn't. Jessica had forged my signature. My daughter had committed fraud. She'd stolen my identity to rack up debt, probably for wedding expenses she didn't want Brad or his parents to know about. I sat with those papers in my hands, shaking with a rage I'd never felt before. Not when Daniel cheated. Not when Jessica was cruel. This was different. This was criminal. This was unforgivable. I called her. She answered cheerfully. Hey, Mom. What's up? Jessica, I just got a call from a collections agency. About a credit card with $10,000 of debt. A card you opened in my name without my permission. Silence. Then, oh, that. Look, I can explain. You forged my signature. You stole my identity. You committed fraud. Mom, don't be so dramatic. I knew you'd say no if I asked, but I needed it for the wedding. And I was going to pay it off, but things have been tight. Things have been tight. You live in a house your in-laws bought for you. You don't even work. Mom, you're being really unfair right now. This is why I don't like talking to you. You always make me feel bad. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream. I make you feel bad? Jessica, you've been using me for years. And now you've stolen from me. You've literally committed a crime. It's not stealing if you were going to give it to me anyway. Her voice was rising, defensive and angry. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. I have helped you. I've done nothing but help you your entire life. I paid for your education, your apartment, your wedding. I worked myself into the ground for you. And this is how you repay me. Oh my God, here we go with the martyr act. Poor Zoe, working so hard, sacrificing so much. Did you ever think that maybe I didn't ask to be born? That I didn't ask for you to make all these sacrifices and then hold them over my head? Her words hit me like physical blows. I never held anything over your head. I gave freely because I loved you. No, you gave because it made you feel good about yourself. Because you wanted to be the hero. Well, guess what? I'm tired of being your charity case. Something in me went quiet and cold. You're right, Jessica. I did want to feel good about myself. I wanted to believe I was a good mother. But I see now that I failed. I didn't raise a daughter. I raised someone who thinks love means taking and taking until there's nothing left. Whatever, Mom. I don't have time for this. Brad and I are going out to dinner. Where are you going? I asked, suddenly curious. To Alinea. Brad's parents made reservations weeks ago. Why? Alinea. One of the most expensive restaurants in Chicago. Probably $400 per person. Nothing, Jessica. Have a wonderful time. I hung up before she could respond. I couldn't afford a private investigator like the father in your reference story, but I didn't need one. I had something better, a daughter who overshared on social media. I opened Instagram, something I rarely used. Jessica's account was public. I scrolled through months of posts. Designer handbags. expensive brunches, trips to New York, Miami, Los Angeles, shopping sprees at Neiman Andrew, spa days, wine tastings. Every post was tagged with location and brand names. Every photo was carefully curated to show wealth and luxury. And in the captions, she talked about her struggles and how hard things were. One post from 2 weeks after the wedding showed her at some charity gala. The caption read, "So blessed to be part of this amazing cause. Giving back is so important to me." She was wearing a dress that cost at least $2,000. I knew because I'd seen it in a magazine. Meanwhile, I was home recovering from back surgery, living on reduced workers' comp pay, eating rice and beans to save money. I felt sick. I felt angry. But most of all, I felt done. I looked at my bank statements from the past 5 years. Over $100,000. That's what I'd given her when you added up college, living expenses, the apartment deposit I'd given her before she met Brad, the wedding, and various emergencies over the years. $100,000 that should have been my retirement. $100,000 that could have given me security in my old age. Gone. And what had it bought me? A daughter who was embarrassed by me. A daughter who had committed fraud in my name. A daughter who saw me as nothing more than an ATM that occasionally said annoying things. I spent the weekend thinking. Really thinking. My friend Rita's words kept echoing in my head. You have yourself. Did I? After all these years of giving everything to Jessica, was there still a self to have? I thought about my mother, Dorothy, who'd sold her grandmother's silver to help me go to nursing school. She'd sacrificed too, but she'd done it with joy and pride because she knew I appreciated it. Because I'd worked hard and made something of myself. Because I'd never made her feel ashamed of who she was or where she came from. I thought about all the patients I'd cared for over the years. The ones who'd held my hand and thanked me. The families who'd hugged me and told me I'd made a difference. My career wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was something to be proud of. And I thought about my future. 3 more years until full retirement. 3 more years of pain and exhaustion. And for what? So Jessica could have a bigger inheritance to blow on designer handbags? No. I was done. On Monday morning, I called my lawyer. His name was Robert Chin, and he'd helped me with my divorce years ago. I made an appointment for that afternoon. "Zoe, good to see you," Robert said when I arrived. "Though I have to admit, I'm curious why you're here." I told him everything. The forged credit card. The years of financial abuse. Jessica's words on the phone. Robert listened carefully, taking notes. "Zoe, what your daughter did is identity theft and fraud. You could press charges." "I don't want to press charges. I don't want to put my daughter in jail. But I need to protect myself legally and financially." "What did you have in mind?" "I want to remove her from my will completely. I want to cancel my cosigner status on any accounts she might have used my name for. And I want to know my legal options regarding that fraudulent credit card." Robert nodded slowly. "I can help with all of that. For the credit card, you can file a police report stating it was fraud. The debt will be investigated, and you won't be held responsible. However, Jessica would likely face charges." I thought about that. Part of me, a small part, still didn't want to hurt her. But a larger part knew that consequences were the only thing that might wake her up. "Let me think about the police report. But please proceed with removing her from my will and helping me disentangle from any financial connections." Over the next week, Robert worked quickly. He drafted a new will leaving everything to several charities. A nursing scholarship fund, a homeless shelter, and an animal rescue. Organizations that actually helped people, that did good in the world. He also contacted the credit card company with proof of the forgery. They opened an investigation. He sent letters to every bank and creditor I could think of, removing my cosigner status and alerting them that my signature may have been forged on other accounts. Then came the hardest part. Robert advised me to file the police report about the fraud. "Zoe, without it, you're still potentially liable for that debt. And if she's done it once, she might do it again." I spent a sleepless night thinking about it. Finally, I decided. I went to the police station and filed the report. It felt like a betrayal, but it also felt like self-preservation. The detective who took my statement was kind. She told me this happened more often than people thought, children stealing from their parents. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "Sometimes the only way people learn is through consequences." 3 days later, Jessica called me. She was screaming before I even said hello. "What the fuck did you do, Mom?" "The police just called me. They're saying I committed fraud. They're talking about pressing charges." I took a deep breath. Jessica, you did commit fraud. You forged my signature and stole my identity. I can't believe you'd do this to me. I'm your daughter, and I can't believe you'd steal from me. But here we are. Brad's family is going to find out about this. Do you know how humiliating this is? This could ruin my marriage. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I know what I did was wrong. Just concern about her reputation and her marriage. Jessica, maybe you should have thought about that before you committed a crime. You're really going to let them arrest me? Your own daughter? I filed a report to protect myself from debt I didn't incur. What happens next is up to the police and the credit card company. But more importantly, it's up to you. You could take responsibility. You could admit what you did and work out a payment plan. You could show actual remorse. She laughed bitterly. Remorse? For what? For taking money from someone who was just going to give it to me anyway eventually. That money wasn't yours to take, Jessica. Whatever. I need you to call the police and tell them it was a misunderstanding. That you gave me permission. No. Silence. Then, in a voice so cold it gave me chills. Fine. Then don't ever contact me again. You're not welcome in my life. You're not welcome in my home. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a mother anymore. I felt tears pricking my eyes, but my voice stayed steady. I'm sorry you feel that way. I love you, Jessica. I've always loved you. But I won't let you destroy me anymore. Go to hell, Mom. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, crying quietly. It hurt. God, it hurt worse than my back surgery. But underneath the pain was something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. That evening, I sat down and wrote a letter. Not a long one. Just something clear and final. Dear Jessica, you told me I'm no longer welcome in your life. I'm writing to tell you that you're no longer welcome to my resources. I have removed you from my will. When I pass, everything I have will go to charities that actually help people, not to someone who sees kindness as weakness and generosity as obligation. I have canceled my cosigner status on all accounts. Your debts are now yours alone. The credit card you fraudulently opened in my name is being investigated. I had to file a police report to protect myself from legal and financial liability. What you did was not just wrong, it was illegal. For 38 years, I've worked myself to exhaustion for you. I paid for your education, your lifestyle, your wedding. I gave until I had nothing left. And you repaid me by forging my signature, stealing my identity, and ultimately telling me you don't want me in your life. You were right about one thing. You didn't ask to be born. But I didn't ask to be used, disrespected, and treated like an embarrassment. I didn't ask to be just a nurse who doesn't understand how to dress properly for your new wealthy lifestyle. I was a nurse for 38 years. I saved lives. I comforted the dying. I held hands with scared patients and made a difference in this world. That career, that calling is nothing to be ashamed of. The only thing I'm ashamed of now is that I raised a daughter who thinks it is. You said you don't have a mother anymore. You're right, because a mother-daughter relationship requires mutual respect and love. We don't have that. We probably never did. I just loved you too much to see it. I will always love the little girl you once were. But I don't love who you've become. And I won't sacrifice my dignity, my financial security, and my self-respect anymore. I hope someday you understand what you've lost. Not my money, but something far more valuable. A mother who would have done anything for you. Goodbye, Jessica. Zoe. I put the letter in an envelope along with copies of the new will, the police report, and the documentation of me removing my cosigner status. I mailed it certified mail, requiring signature. Then I blocked her number. Blocked her on social media. Blocked her email. I cut off every avenue she had to contact me. Jessica tried to reach me anyway. She got Brad to call me. I didn't answer. She sent her mother-in-law, Patricia, to my apartment. I saw her through the peephole and didn't open the door. She even contacted my friend Rita, asking her to convince me to drop the charges and restore her to my will. Rita laughed in her face. Your mother finally found her spine, Rita told her. You should be proud. But then again, you never were proud of her, were you? The credit card investigation concluded. There was clear evidence of forgery. Jessica was given two options: admit guilt and arrange a payment plan with restitution, or face criminal charges. She chose the payment plan. She'll be paying that debt off for years. Meanwhile, I made my own plans. I officially retired 2 months later on medical disability. My pension wasn't huge, but it was enough. I sold my apartment, which had appreciated nicely over the years, and moved to a small town in North Carolina called Wilmington, right on the coast. I bought a tiny cottage 3 blocks from the beach. 2 bedrooms, a screened porch, and a garden where I could grow tomatoes and herbs. It cost less than half what my Chicago apartment sold for, leaving me with actual savings for the first time in years. I've been in Wilmington for 6 months now. I wake up every morning to the sound of seagulls and ocean waves. I make my coffee on my little porch and watch the sunrise paint the sky pink and gold. It's quiet here. Peaceful. I've made friends. Real friends. There's Linda, who lives next door and teaches art classes at the community center. She's teaching me to paint. My first attempts are terrible, but she says everyone starts somewhere. There's Andrew, who owns the bookstore on Main Street. He saves me mysteries and memoirs, my favorite genres. We have coffee together every Tuesday and discuss what we've been reading. There's a whole group of retired nurses who meet for lunch once a week. We swap war stories from our careers, laugh about the crazy things we saw, and support each other through the challenges of aging. These women understand me in a way Jessica never did. I volunteer at the local free clinic twice a week. I can't do physical nursing anymore because of my back, but I can do intake, hold hands, and talk to scared patients. I can still make a difference. My cottage is small, but it's mine. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. Bright colors, comfortable furniture, photos of people I love on the walls. My parents, my nursing school friends, my colleagues from the hospital. People who valued me. There are no photos of Jessica. I took them all down. Some people might think that's cruel, but I think it's self-preservation. Every time I looked at her face, I felt the wound open again. I think a lot about where I went wrong. I've had time now, time to really examine my choices. I gave Jessica everything because I came from nothing. I wanted her to have opportunities one never had. But somewhere along the way, I confused giving her things with teaching her values. I worked so much, trying to provide for her financially, that I wasn't there emotionally. And when I was there, I was too tired to be the parent she needed. The parent who says no. The parent who sets boundaries. The parent who teaches that love isn't about what you can get from someone, but what you can give. I also realize now that I was trying to fill a void. After Daniel left, Jessica became my whole world. I needed to be needed. I needed to feel like I had purpose. And Jessica learned to exploit that need. But here's the hardest truth. I enabled her. Every time I gave in, every time I made excuses for her behavior, every time I sacrificed my own needs for hers, I taught her that she could treat me however she wanted, and I'd still be there with my wallet open. I taught her that I didn't value myself. So why would she value me? If I could go back and do it all over again, I would do so many things differently. I would have said no more often. I would have let her face consequences earlier. I would have spent less money and more time. I would have taught her the value of hard work by making her work for things instead of handing them to her. I would have required respect. I would have demanded it. Because children who don't respect their parents grow into adults who don't respect anyone. I would have loved myself enough to set boundaries. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, and I emptied myself completely trying to fill her. But I can't go back. I can only move forward with these lessons. I've learned that it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to say, enough. I've learned that blood doesn't excuse abuse. Being family doesn't give someone the right to use you, disrespect you, or take advantage of your love. I've learned that real love requires mutual respect. One-sided love isn't love at all. It's self-destruction dressed up as sacrifice. And I've learned that losing a toxic person, even if that person is your child, can feel like freedom. Jessica tried to contact me one more time, about 2 months ago. She sent a letter to my old address in Chicago, and the post office forwarded it to me here. The letter was 3 pages long. She said she was sorry. She said she'd been thinking about everything and realized she'd treated me badly. She said she wanted to make things right. But then, in the last paragraph, she mentioned that Brad's business was struggling and they might need to sell the townhouse. She wondered if I might have some savings I could invest in Brad's company. She was sure I'd make my money back with interest. I read that letter and I laughed. The same old Jessica. The apology was just a setup for another ask. I didn't respond. I threw the letter away and went to the beach. I walked in the sand, feeling the warm sun on my face, listening to the waves crash on the shore. And I felt nothing for her. No anger, no sadness. Just nothing. That's when I knew I was finally free. I'm sharing my story because I know I'm not alone. I know there are other mothers and fathers out there who are being used by their adult children, who are sacrificing everything and getting nothing but disrespect in return. If that's you, please hear this. It's okay to stop. It's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to require respect. It's okay to protect yourself financially and emotionally. Your child being upset with you is not the worst thing that can happen. You sacrificing your dignity, your retirement, your peace of mind, that's worse. Real love doesn't demand everything from you. Real love doesn't make you feel small or ashamed. Real love doesn't come with conditions and constant asks. And if your child only values what you can give them, not who you are as a person, then they don't really love you. They love what you provide. And you deserve more than that. You are not a bank. You are not a servant. You are not a means to an end. You are a human being with value and worth that has nothing to do with how much money you have or what you can provide. It is not selfish to choose yourself. It's survival. I spent 38 years putting Jessica first. The last 6 months, I've put myself first. And I'm happier now than I've ever been. My back still hurts. My knees still ache. But my heart is lighter. My conscience is clear. And when I look in the mirror, I see someone I'm proud of. Not just a nurse, but a woman who saved lives, who worked hard, who loved fiercely, and who finally loved herself enough to walk away from someone who didn't deserve her. I'm 64 years old. I don't know how many years I have left. But I know this. I'm going to spend them doing things that bring me joy. Painting with Linda. Reading books Andrew recommends. Volunteering at the clinic. Walking on the beach. Growing tomatoes. Living for me, not for someone who sees me as an ATM. If Jessica ever truly changes, if she ever comes to me with real remorse, with changed behavior, not just pretty words, maybe we could talk. Maybe we could rebuild something. But that's up to her. I've done all I can do. I've given all I can give. Now I'm giving to myself. And it feels wonderful. To all the mothers and fathers out there who are struggling with toxic adult children, you are not alone. You are not a bad parent for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for protecting yourself. You are brave. You are strong. And you deserve peace. Choose yourself. It's never too late. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy to hear, just like it wasn't easy to live. But if my experience can help even one person find the courage to choose themselves, to set boundaries with a toxic child, then sharing it was worth it. Remember, love should never require you to destroy yourself. Real family respects you, values you, and treats you with dignity. If this story touched you, please hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, what time it is there, and whether you've ever struggled with setting boundaries with family. I share real stories like this every single day. Stories about life, loss, courage, and second chances. Stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles. Take care of yourselves out there. You deserve it. Until next time.